We all have the same 24 hours in a day. Now, I heard this recently, you've probably heard it before, and I'll be honest with you, don't use this word very often, but it triggered me a little bit. So I want to talk to you about how I think that ultimately anyone that says this is a bit of a clown and doesn't really fully understand people's situation, let's say. Now, let's get first things first. If you need a PT to tell you that we all have 24 hours in a day, then you've probably got bigger problems than needing to get fitter or lose some weight or what have you. Because someone just telling you that we've got 24 hours is just a statement of fact and not in fact anything that's going to ultimately help you. And I think the reason that this has resonated with me more so recently, or definitely the reason that this is the case, is that I've recently become a dad. And so my life has turned upside down in a good way, in terms of me being able to prioritize things, or having to prioritize things, having to be more efficient, and ultimately having very little time for myself. And more often than not, the people that spout these statements are people that do not have kids, or do not have, busy, hectic jobs or what have you, or even both of those combined. But more often than not, they don't have kids. Now, that's not an attack on people that don't have kids. However, knowing how I thought about things before and now, I can now see more clearly the challenges that parents have. That being said, I like to think that I had a fairly understanding and empathetic viewpoint before, but the reality is that until you experience something, being a parent, you can't understand how all-encompassing it is. And obviously it is absolutely worth it, and then some. However, someone spouting on social media, making you feel shit about yourself because you've been prioritizing your child that needs your help all of the time, 24/7, whenever they need you, it just makes you feel guilty. It makes you feel like you're not doing a good job, both for your kid, for yourself, and all of that. And all that can just lend into, as I say, a feeling of guilt, and it's just not helpful. And also saying things like this just as a statement and saying like, oh, well, we all have the same 24 hours, so you just need to be more disciplined, I feel is just a real, how can I put it, is a real insult, or is a real just lack of awareness to the person that is experiencing that. And as a coach, if you're declaring yourself as a good coach, fine, not everybody's going to have children. However, if you think that the 24 hours that, for example, I have, or someone else who's a new dad or a parent or whatever, versus someone that doesn't, I can tell you now firsthand that those lives look completely different. And I've managed to still train. I have trained less and I've had to be more efficient, not a lot less. However, I am someone who works in a gym as a PT. It is easier for me to get my exercise in because I am coming here anyway. However, when I was off on paternity leave for 2 weeks, I bought a week's pass at another gym, and because I wasn't working then, I had a little bit more time and I went to that gym. And I said, do you know what? When I finish my paternity, I am going to join that gym because I really enjoyed the process of going into the gym, putting my headphones on, and just cracking on. And guess what's happened since then? I've not had a waking second to even think about joining that gym. So I'm back to training here when I can, fitting it in, quick 45 minute workouts where possible. And it's easy to say, prioritize yourself, have more discipline, all of these things. But it's easy to say it when you ultimately haven't experienced what it's like to have a child to look after in your life. And you can't explain that until you have that little human being there that needs you hand on foot. And in my case, your partner at home, who you also need to help, support, and all the rest of it, who's doing an amazing job, by the way. And obviously, dependent upon whether you're male, female, whether you're mum, dad, whatever, listening to this, your challenges are going to be unique. But the common denominator here is that the child makes your 24 hours a whole lot harder than some dickhead who thinks that it's the same as someone who doesn't have a child, because it's not even close to being the same. And I just think putting that sort of thing out there isn't helpful. Although it is a fact And again, if you need help with that, then maybe there's more problems. We all know that there's 24 hours in the day, but everybody's 24 hours is different. The amount of things that people have to do within those 24 hours is different. And some, jumped up coach or jumped up PT who doesn't have all those things to think about can't comprehend how difficult it is to do feeding, nappy changes, burping, washing, cleaning, washing up, tidying the house 7 times a day because there's just stuff everywhere, going to appointments, health visitors coming round, all of these things. I've forgotten probably another dozen things there. You cannot comprehend how difficult that can make it for you to try and find time for the gym, and also to feel like you've got the motivation to go to the gym. Now, granted, I agree we have to, there's nuance here. I agree we have to do things sometimes when we don't feel motivated. And that's absolutely what I've been doing. There's been days when I do not feel up to training. I haven't got 100%, so I go and give my 60, 70%, but it's still something. But as I've said, again, I have a gym to myself. I'm here every day versus someone who doesn't, who has to get in the car or pack a bag, get in the car, leave child at home, leave child and partner at home or whatever, drive to the gym, train when you're tired, get back in the car, come home, and then crack on with everything else that's there at home. So I totally understand the challenges now that parents have. Obviously, in my stage, newborn stage, very different to further down the line, which is why everyone's 24 hours is completely unique to them. However, the problems can be common, if you will. So someone with a child versus someone without a child is going to experience a very different 24 hours. Somebody who works 50, 60 hours a week is going to experience something very different to someone who chooses their hours and works whenever they want and maybe works 20, 25, 30 hours a week. It's not the same. And so it doesn't mean that you don't have to have discipline, as it's said. And it doesn't mean that you can't be more efficient in terms of prioritization, which is absolutely what I've had to do in terms of my work life. I want to go home during the day and I want to help out and I want to spend time with the little one and stuff. And so when I do get time to sit in front of the computer, which is probably 2 to 3 times less, if not more than I did before, I have to be incredibly efficient. And I'm getting better at that. But what I think the point of this whole sort of episode is, if you haven't experienced something, it is very difficult to empathize and it's very difficult to ultimately understand the challenges that come with that situation. And this isn't a bash on anyone that doesn't have kids as such. It's just a bash on not fully understanding someone's situation and then trying to coach them on it and trying to tell them that they just have to have more willpower, they just have to have more discipline. Someone can want to lose weight and get fitter, but not want to do that at the detriment of raising their child at the same time. Both can be true at the same time. And it could be incredibly difficult to balance both of them things. But again, with nuance, it doesn't mean it can't be done. It doesn't mean you can't still go to the gym, but it probably means you can't go to the gym 5, 6 days a week for an hour and a half at a time. It probably means that sometimes the priority has to be that, okay, I can't make it today. I've got to do whatever it is at home. I'll shift it to another day. And that's just life. But I think when you see these posts, it doesn't help people. It makes people feel worse about their situation. It makes people feel guilty. It makes people feel like they're failing. And seeing firsthand the challenges in terms of how you think about how you're coping as a parent, in terms of, oh, am I doing a good job? Am I not doing a good job? Am I there enough? Am I doing this, that, and the other? To then have someone telling you that you just have to have more discipline, you just have to prioritize, it just feels dickish. And it's not helpful, and it's probably going to have the opposite effect on the person versus making them think, oh, well, yeah, I better just, find more willpower and go to the gym. I just think it's not helpful. So to interrupt the episode, just quickly, if you are either using or considering using GLP-1s, aka weight loss jabs, I want to help. Now, I'm not saying that they are the right thing for you, they might not be. So I've created a free guide to help you either through that process or to make the decision that they are not for you. If you'd like that free guide, all you need to do is click the link below this episode and I'll send it right over via email. For now, back to the episode. Now, it is true that we all have 24 hours in the day, but we don't have the same 24 hours in the day, in that within those 24 hours, the number of tasks and all the rest of it that we may have to do, the level of stress, all of that stuff is not the same. And so everyone's approach has to be different. Nobody can follow a cookie cutter approach. And also, if you've got someone who can't empathize, I don't necessarily think you have to have had kids, but I think if you can't see that that's incredibly difficult and that you can't just be the person who goes 5-6 days a week, especially when most people don't even like exercise. Most of the PT spouting this love it. They've done it their whole life. They're probably doing other stuff as well to make themselves look better, let's say. They live for it. Most people don't. The average person is just trying to get by. The average person is, trying to get through day by day, probably wants to feel a little bit fitter, but doesn't want to be obsessed, doesn't want to spend hours prepping meals, hasn't got the time to do all these things, and is ultimately trying to do their best for everyone around them. And to summarize this now, just, remember, as I say, yeah, we all have the same 24 hours, but they all look completely different. And you don't need to listen to a coach who tells you that you need to have just more discipline and more willpower when you're absolutely knackered because you've been up all night, you've been non-stop all day, and then some person's telling you that, you just need to have more willpower. They've never been in your situation. And again, that's not a bash on them per se. It's just, if they can't relate to you and your problems, they're not going to be able to help you as a coach. So it probably makes sense just to unfollow people like that. Like, not in a bad way, just think, do you know what, they're not the coach for me. Maybe they're a good coach for someone who, has sort of all the time in the world to commit to things and to do things for 5-6 days a week, to, religiously do everything right with regards to your nutrition, to, get up at ridiculous o'clock to go for a walk or go for a walk late at night. Like, some of these things are just impossible. Even in like I'm in a relationship with my partner where we're both there, but many people are on their own and struggling, single parents, but they still have these aspirations to get fitter, to lose some weight and do all these things. Often in female case, especially after having a baby. Sometimes you just have to take the pressure off yourself, and when you've got people like that in front of you on your social media feed telling you that, we've all got the same 24 hours, well, you can just literally tell them to fuck off and hit the unfollow button, because it's just not helping you. It's not helping you in terms of actually giving you some useful tools in terms of what to actually do and how to try and prioritize things. And also, it's just going to damage you psychologically. It's just going to make you think that you're not doing a good job, that you should be doing more when you're already absolutely non-stop. So, yeah, we have the same 24 hours in the day, but it's not the same. It never will be. It's completely changed the way that I see the world. It's completely changed the way that I see how difficult it is to continue to train and look after yourself and do all the things for you when you're responsible for a little human being. So yeah, anyone that doesn't understand that is not the coach for you. Now, hopefully that's been useful. I hope it's not necessarily just been a rant or an attack on, people that have this viewpoint. They've got their place in the world, and if you're someone who needs help and support with regards to that specific thing of having a child, which ultimately is most people, and finding that balance with regards to health, fitness, all of that, I'm now better qualified than ever to do that. But just make sure that you're following people who are supporting that and who understand that and who value that, versus people that think your life is the same as theirs.